So the Delta T platform brings cutting-edge asset monitoring to the individual desktop. So this is allowing small and large organizations to run global monitoring from a single machine. So sensors can be installed and configured in minutes with entire systems ready and running within the same day for global reach and accuracy. So the focus points. So the Delta T Alert platform brings asset monitoring to the user's desktop to support large and small businesses, and it has rapid installation and global reach. So the module objectives: Delta T Alert setup, gateways setup, asset monitoring, settings and reports. So Delta T standard sensor. So the standard sensor is a wireless, self-contained monitoring sensor that attaches to the electrical enclosure covers. So the device contains three sensors: an ambient and enclosure temperature sensor and an enclosure humidity sensor. So the internal and external temperature sensors are used to create a delta showing the overall condition of the equipment against room environmental conditions. Then the sensor is powered by three AA batteries with an estimated battery life of 18 to 24 months, depending on the settings and the environmental conditions. And the sensor communicates using Z-Wave to the desired Delta T alert gateway at a range of 300 foot line of sight. So barriers and heavy equipment or machinery may reduce effective range. The Delta T Pro units contain a humidity sensor and two temperature sensors. So one is to monitor the electrical enclosure's interior temperature, and the second is to monitor the room's ambient temperature. There is a plug-in auxiliary contact thermocouple for monitoring inside the enclosure. So this continually powered by USB allows for more active monitoring and powers the display showing live information from all sensors. So this supports additional auxiliary sensor options. So using the auxiliary USB port on the sensor, additional sensors can be included, such as three-phase monitoring, ultrasound and contact thermocouples. So the sensor's display screen allows for color-coded notification on the screen, highlighting alarm sensors and displaying the criticality of the monitored equipment. Delta T Alert sensor enclosures. So for outdoor or hazardous environments, Delta T Alert standards and Pro sensors can be installed within a matching environmental housing, protect it from potentially damaging weather and environmental effects. So you have the EMV Pro housing, which has a small clear perspex window installed so you can see the display, and then the EMV housing, this one here is fully enclosed but has a little green area so you can see that the Delta T is still functioning. So the gateway, this is for local and remote solutions. So the Delta T Alert gateway allows users to pair up to 254 sensors per gateway without impacting their local area network. So each gateway extends a 30-foot line of sight Z-Wave signal to communicate with the Delta T Alert sensors. So gateways can be converted from local to remote by converting the gateway using the Gateway Update feature. So the local gateways can be connected to your local area network and scan freely without any additional steps, but must remain in the same network as the master PC running the Delta T software. Or you can use the remote gateway, which can be instanced and connected at any internal accessible location using an Ethernet port with an active service. So the remote gateways are managed by the Iris Cloud server so that local installations of the Delta T software can connect to these gateways from anywhere in the world. The software can be installed on almost any Windows desktop running Windows 7 or greater. The desktop in question must have access to the same local area network you intend to use your sensors and gateways unless you are using a remote gateway. The software will allow the user to actively monitor and manage the data gathered by sensors and their current configuration settings. Then the Delta T's requirements are very manageable to the extent where any PC running a comparable operating system will have the specifications needed to operate the Delta T Alert platform. So the software installation. So you download and run the application executable. So you go to the Delta T Alert software page while logged into your Iris website account, and to add the Delta T software to your account. So the download section is found by navigating to My Account, Downloads, Delta T Alert software. Then you select your intended installation location. So you run the downloaded exe file and select the intended destination of your software. So please note that the Delta T Alert platform requires the system to run the application as an administrator. So some locations, such as a program file, will not enable this access by default and may require additional setup changes to support access through shortcuts. Then you launch the Delta T Alert software. So once completed, run the Delta T application and you can then begin adding gateways and sensors to start constructing your system. So views, insights and trends. So the normal view, so this window is the primary area where data will be observed live. So while in this mode, data is being actively collected and added to trending graphs and to the main data table. So sensors can also be interacted with directly from the main screen. The admin view. So while running in this view, the mode data will not, and I say will not, be collected to prevent data integrity issues. So from here, sensors and gateways can be added or removed, and configurations and settings changed to tailor the user experience and the data gathered. And finally, passwords. So protect users and the platform, an optional user configuration password can be activated from the admin view using the application settings. So by default, the password is left blank, and in the event that the password is lost, a notification can be sent to the designated email address. So let's look at the normal and admin view in a bit more detail. So we have the menu bar. So this is shown in the admin view, and the options are available to each view are displayed here. We have what we call the sorting bar. So what you can do here is click and drag headers into this location to sort the systems tables by those fields. Then we have the system table. So this area contains all active sensors organised by their collected data. So sensor rows can be selected and interacted with. Then we have the trending graph. So this shows trending data by type. By right clicking allows you to select different graphs. We have the location overview. So this shows enclosures, ambient and delta values for each sensor that shares the selected location. And finally the system overview. And this current status colours by total sensors on the system. So system table interaction in the admin view. So we start off with the sensor data. So this row of data shows all displayable data that was last updated from the sensors. So while in the normal view, you can double click this bar to poll the sensor manually. We have sensor attributes. So they designate the sensor's organizational details along with its base properties for reports and alarms. And the sensor options. So right clicking on a sensor will open the sensor options. These items will allow you to view data, graphs, poll the data, test the audible buzzer and verify its firmware version. So when you right click on a sensor in the system table, some options can be displayed depending on what view you're in. So in admin view, you will see the sensor attributes window, which allows you to quick and easy access to some of the details for the sensor, including its name, site, location and alarm levels. Additionally, when right clicking on the sensor, you get a list of context sensitivity options based on the view you're in. So you can view graphs, you can configure the sensor, you can get temperatures by sensor, by its location, by site or by all those areas. You can test the buzzer and you can also get the version. So the data trending graph. So the graph name. So this area lists the names and types of the graph displayed within the normal view. So our trending values. So this is depending on the graph type. The associated values collected from the sensor will be displayed here. The sensor name. So this display graph shows the data collected from the selected sensor in the system table, and that sensor's name appears here. And the graph options. So by right clicking on the graph in the normal view, you can select a different graph to be displayed in this space. So this is the data trending graph accessible from admin and normal views by right-clicking a sensor and selecting View and the graph type and the user desires as seen from the list above. So these graphs include ambient and enclosure graph, which is 2 plots, the enclosure graph, which is the enclosure temperature only, the delta T graph, which is the delta temperature only, the humidity graph, the external or auxiliary graph, and the ambient, enclosure and external graph, which are 3 plots. So all these graphs can be modified to cover different time frames. So the location overview graph is also accessible in both views and by right-clicking the sensor of choice. So depending on the sensor selected, all sensors that share that selected sensor location will show up in the location overview with their data sets compared to one another. So in detail, we have the graph name. So this is the name of the location overview graph. We have the sensor data. So this location overview will show a set of data for each sensor included in the same location, and this is sorted based on the current sensor selected. We have the data bars. So each sensor displays 3 data bars representing the various measured data gathered from that sensor. And then we also have the location group. So this shows all sensors matching that same location area. So the site overview graph operates in the same fashion. So depending on what sensor is selected, all sensors sharing the same site will appear as a number on the graph with colours and segments according to the size and current state of those sensors. So this counts for the number of sensors sharing that same value will be shown alongside the condition. So we have the system overview, so we have the graph label. So this designates the type of graph, in this case the system overview, which displays a pie chart for all current sensor conditions by severity. We have the sensor status. So the color and text of each segment denotes the associated sensor's current condition and status. And then we have the sensor count. So next to each status condition there will be a number listing the total number of sensors matching this current condition. So the options shown here are in the normal view, which is somewhat more limited than the admin view. So you have full access to all the reports and help options, but additional settings and the ability to add and remove devices are limited to the admin view menu items. So with the normal view, data is streamed to the platform displayed live as it is received. So trending graphs and data tables are updated and sensors can be polled manually. So this is the primary operating state of the software, but does not allow for sensors or data to be modified while information is still being sent to the database. So at all times the systems should be left to run and operate while in this mode to ensure that the data is being logged properly. So we have views, so they are used for switching between normal and admin views to access different options. We have the reports, so generate reports and review alarms, and these options are available in both admin and normal view. And we have help, and the help and support options available in both admin and normal view. So the admin view menu options. So here we have more expansive list of options such as systems, which allows the user to add, remove and manage components such as sensors and gateways. So in addition, the user has access to the setting menus, which allows them to change configurations and create and restore backups. So the admin view is where all settings, configuration systems and database configurations features can be modified and set. So while running the software in the admin mode, you will receive a notification that data is not being collected while you remain in this view. Additionally, after 1 hour of time in this mode, a countdown will appear to manually move the user to the normal view unless it is cancelled to prevent the system from accidentally being left in this state. So views. Switch between admin and normal view. There is no password option for returning to normal view. We have the system. Add and remove sensor components from the system. We have settings. Modify system settings, backups, logs and data. We have our reports. We can generate reports of various forms to suit your needs. And help, and additional resources and information for general support. So the System tab provides options for adding and removing components, that's sensors and gateways, from the Delta T Alert platform. It also provides options for updating the firmware on both types of devices, as well as the additional options to manage your system. So you can add and remove sensors and gateways, you can edit your data, and you can update sensor and gateway firmware. So the System tab provides options for adding and removing components. It also provides options for updating the firmware on both types of devices, as well as the additional option to manage your system. So the sensors. You can add and remove sensor options allows you to add a new sensor device to currently paired gateways. You can delete a sensor, can be used to remove a non-responsive or damaged device. We have the gateways. So you can add and remove gateways from the system so they can be used with new sensors. When relocating a gateway, use the reset option to fully clear its local memory. We have the data. So this modifies existing data to remove errant readings and to correct trending data. We have the updates. So update gateways or sensors to be used a selected version. And we have system monitor. So this inspects your machine and gateways to verify optimal function and operations. In the Settings tab, you can modify the default settings, system settings, and then the configuration of sensors, as well as managing data recovery. So additionally, options for data management on your system and resetting your platform are available in this location. So we have our settings, where you can adjust and set applications and system settings to control your platform. We can configure the sensor, so this is rapidly applying new sensor configuration to all selected sensors. We can open the log, so we review the system log, tracking alarm and system activities such as shutdowns and startups. We have the backup, so we can recreate and store backups to ensure your system is always safe. So the Delta T automatically generates backups regularly. We have the data management. We can review and clear cached and data information to ensure you are using your local storage efficiently. And the system reset. So when rebuilding a system entirely, use a system reset to clear all sensors and gateways and settings. So the report tabs. So from this tab, users can generate a variety of reports in different formats and for different purposes. So this information can be analysed or imported into other third-party platforms. Additionally, any active and unconfirmed alerts will appear in the alerts menu options for review until they are cleared. So we have system reports, where we can generate a system report in PDF or XLS format, which contains a snapshot of the current system table. We can inspection reports, so we will generate a report of all sensors that are in a non-standard condition for further review and repairs. We can carry out a full and weekly scan, create an Excel spreadsheet containing all collected data or 7 days of collected data. The custom report, we can create and report a custom report by selecting the desired gateway, sensor and time frame. And the alerts. We can review all alarms and events that have not been cleared by the administrator. And finally, the Help tab. So the Help tab provides access to the variety of support options, from direct contact to instructions on software operations and sensor installation. You can also find information about Iris and the versions information for your software platform. So we have how it works. This allows the user to open the resources document for a personal review. We have the instructions, where hardware operations and user instructions for Delta T Alert sensors. We have the warranty, which is the Iris conditional warranty information. Contact, information how to contact Iris. And about, so this is information about Iris and the current installed version of your Delta T Alert. Gateways control and communication. So the Iris Delta gateways allow the monitoring in almost any environment, both local and remote, through a variety of options and scenarios to support industries of all sizes. So the gateway brings asset monitoring to small and large businesses, so from inside the office to the most remote locations, and the sensors can be set up in minutes with the same day startup for systems worldwide. So an important question to factor into the layout of any Delta T system is what kind of gateway you will receive and what the combination will properly support your situation. So each gateway comes with its own contextual benefits and requirements. So the local gateways are ideal for small sites with local area networks throughout the facility, or areas with internet access is not available using a secondary or internet system. And then we have the remote gateways, and these are ideal for remote locations or areas without network access or with a remote access point such as a GSM modem, and can be quickly set up to allow a form of access anywhere in the world. So what do? Do we go local or do we remote? So connect and search. So with a local gateway, all you need to do is connect the gateway to a port on your local area network. Wait a moment and prompt the software to search for available gateways. If there's no internet required, so the local gateway uses only your local area network and can still operate normally without access to the internet, through the ability for alarms to reach remote sources may be limited. So we have the local area network only. So due to the configuration of the gateway and software, this device can only work when operating on the same local area network as the Delta T Alert's main PC. We have worldwide access. So as long as you have your device's MAC address, you can connect your remote gateway to any internet access point, whether it is a landline or GSM connection, and connect back to your desktop. It requires internet connection. So due to the format of the remote gateway, it can only be added to systems using an internet connection. And restricted accessibility. So only a user with your device's specific MAC address can connect to your gateway, allowing it to remain private even to local systems. So both local and remote gateways are functionality and physically identical, separated by only the firmware and networking functions that connect them to your desired PC. So each gateway has a list of details on the back which will be necessary for configuration. So be sure to keep track of these numbers if the gateway is being installed in a remote or inaccessible location, as the MAC address and home ID are used for identifying the gateway when adding it to the new platform. So the anatomy of the gateway. We have what we call the operation lights. So during normal operation, the Z-Wave, WAN and power should be illuminated. We have the power supply. So both gateways configurations require constant power from an AC adapter supplied with each unit. We have the MAC address. So the unique identifier for your device. For remote gateways, this will be the identifier when adding the device to your system. You have a home ID. So this Z-Wave Home ID identifies the specific controller identifier for the device and is used to differentiate the local gateways. And we have finally the Ethernet and service USB port. So at all times, the Ethernet access to a network or local or remote. We have memory, features can be expanded using a USB service port. Gateway placement is a major factor in the decision-making process. So keep in mind that the sensor and the gateway have a 300-foot line of sight range. So this means that some surfaces and materials may obstruct and reduce this effective range. So if possible, gateways and sensors should be tested on site before installation is made to ensure that the desired locations are reachable in the areas that the client intends to install. So let's look at this in a bit more detail. So the range. So the first thing to consider when placing a gateway in is the physical distance between the gateway and the sensor that it will be paired with. So the Delta T, as already discussed, provides a 300-foot line of sight range for sensors and gateways. but be aware of barriers that may impede signal range. IRIS recommends that gateways be placed within 100 foot of the primary sensors for indoor applications. We also need to take into effect the environment. So some materials such as thick metals, concrete and rebar, and heavy machinery can diminish the signal range of an entirely block the wireless communication. So we have to be sure to perform a test run before your sensors and gateway placement is committed to any installation locations. Additionally, the Delta T Alert gateway is not environmentally rated and may require additional enclosures. In the admin view under the system menu, the user can select Add Gateway to add either local or remote gateways by selecting the associated options. So when adding local gateways, they will be asked to either scan the default network, to type in the IP address manually if it is known, or a custom IP range. So when adding a remote gateway, they will type in the gateway's MAC address, which is found on the back of the label of the gateway. So let's look at the Add Gateway menu. So we find the Find Local Gateway. So we search your local area network for powered Delta T local gateways. You may also choose to type in the device's IP address manually if it is known. We have the Find Remote Gateway. So search for a remote gateway using the gateway's unique MAC address. Then we have the box that says Found Gateways. So this lists all available gateways that have been found either through Find Local or Find Remote methods. And then Add Selected Gateway. So select the desired gateway from the Found Gateways list and click the Add button to attach the new gateway to your platform. So the existing gateways cannot be added again. So remove gateway menu. So the selected gateway is highlighted. We select the desired gateway you wish to remove from the system, but note, removing the gateway will also remove all sensors. So this process cannot be undone through backups or by re-adding the gateway, as its internal memory will be changed. So if the gateway is re-added in the future, it will appear as a new gateway along with any sensors that are added in the future. And then we have the Remove Gateway button. So selecting the X button will remove the selected gateway after agreeing for a confirmation prompt that you wish to remove this gateway. So Reset Gateway. So in the event that a gateway is acting incorrectly when attempting to add sensors, you can reset the gateway to its initial configuration to attempt to alleviate any issues. So this feature should only be used with gateways that are not already in use on your system, as doing this will clear all sensors currently associated with that gateway. So asset monitoring. So the Delta T Alert platform is driven by a highly adaptable and tailored sensor, and it is designed to be installed easily in any equipment, monitoring its internal and external environmental conditions. And this is to give the platform insight into its operational condition and to warn of potential failures long before they occur. So the standard sensor anatomy. So we have an LED status light. So this light illuminates red or green depending on the status of the sensor. We have the battery component. So this contains 3 AA batteries to power the sensor for approximately 18 to 24 months of standard use. We have the ambient sensor. So this externally located sensor detects low ambient temperatures. And then we have the Learn button. And this button is used to add, remove and manually poll the sensor if needed. And then on the enclosure side we have the enclosure sensor. So this is an internally mounted temperature sensor to monitor enclosure values. It also has the humidity sensor in. On the same internal probe, a humidity sensor reports current humidity conditions. And for added security we have the mounting magnet. This allows for a temporary placement of the Delta T sensor or magnetic surfaces. So the Pro Sensor anatomy. So we again have an LED status light, as was mentioned on the normal Delta T. So this illuminates red or green depending on the status of the sensor. Differently on this one, we have the Learn button is actually under the LED status light, and so this button is used to add, remove or manually poll the sensor when needed. And at the base there we have the USB power point. So this gives a constant 24/7 uptime from direct power supply by a USB cable. The LCD display. So this is a full color LED display showing how active readings and will flash red when the alarm conditions are detected. We have the ambient sensor, and this is an externally located sensor, and this detects local ambient temperature. We also have an auxiliary connection. So this allows for the connection of auxiliary inputs, by default a contact thermocouple. We have the enclosure sensor, which is again an internally mounted temperature sensor to monitor the enclosure values, and this also has the humidity sensor on the same internal probe, and the humidity sensor reports current humidity conditions. So the sensor installation. So at all times be sure to follow all designated safety, shutdown and PPE guidelines during the installation of any product around sensitive equipment. So under the fixed installation, we remove the affixing nut from the temperature probe cover on the rear of the sensor. We measure and mark the desired location for the sensor. We remove the desired panel component the sensor will be installed on. We apply the provided installation temperature and drill a 9/16 inch hole on the panel. We then insert the sensor onto the panel by placing the probe through the 9/16 inch hole. We then affix the nut onto the back side of the panel and tighten until the sensor is fastened. We then replace the panel and component. Then we have temporary installation. So the Delta T alert sensor is equipped with a magnet along the back side of the sensor, allowing it to affix itself to any ferrous metal surface. So the sensor can be mounted on the most metal enclosures or placed on the edge of the device as long as the rear temperature probe has access to the internal enclosure. So how do we add and remove a sensor? So once a gateway has been attached to the system in the location you desire, you can easily add multiple sensors to begin collecting the data from your critical asset. When adding sensors, you must use the admin view to access the sensor options under the System tab. So we add or remove. We select whether we wish to add or remove a sensor from the System menu. We select the gateway. You will need to select from a list of the connected gateways which one of the sensors will be added to or removed from. We then click the Learn button. So when prompted by the software, click the Learn button as noted. And then configure sensor or add only. If you are removing sensors, you will be prompted quickly with a notification that the sensor has been removed. If you're adding a sensor, you will be given options to configure the sensor. So sensor initial configuration. So once the sensor has been added to the Delta T Alert software and is connected to your desired gateway, you will be prompted to configure the sensor standard settings, or you can choose to use your system default settings. So in the event that you wish to change the default settings, you can do so by visiting the Application Settings in the Settings tab to configure these options for future editions. So when we come to the initial configuration, so after adding a sensor, you are given the option to use a default configuration, which is set in your application settings, or to apply a manual configuration. So when we go ahead and do manual configuration, so this method of configuration is optional, but it also allows you to change your settings for this new sensor as needed. And then when we apply for the configuration, so after choosing your configuration options, the sensor settings will be applied to and the newly added sensor. So you now want to delete a sensor. So in the event that a sensor appears incorrectly in the system table, or that the sensor itself has gone missing or is no longer operable, you may need to delete the sensor if it cannot be removed using the Learn button. So this method was not clear the local memory on the sensor, which may cause delays in adding the sensor in the new system in the future. So to prevent issues, make sure that you use the Remove Sensor option on any sensor deleted in this way before attempting to add it to another platform. But you do need to note that the Remove Sensor option can be used with sensors that do not currently belong to your software, so their local memory will be still reset but will display an unknown sensor removed message. So sensor interaction. So once a sensor has been added to the software, it can be manipulated from both the admin and normal view. Though different options are available in each, the normal view sensors are considered live and polling data is being actively collected. So sensors may be double-clicked to immediately poll data or right-click to get temperature by group. So by right-clicking a sensor will open the sensor interaction menu showing you all of the available options. So what do we have? Well, we have View. Open the desired graph or table as a new window, normal in the admin view. Now Configure. You can manually reconfigure the selected sensor, but you can only do this in the admin view only. Get the temperature. So you can manually poll the sensor by its location site and all sensors or the individual sensor. You can only do this in normal view. The test buzzer. Force the sensor to emit an alarm noise for the set duration, and you can do this in the normal and admin view. And then get the version. So query the sensor to determine its current firmware version, and again you can do this in the normal or admin view. So sensor configuration. Schedules 1 through 8. So set up 8 schedules throughout the day at specific hours. So during these times, the sensor will wake up automatically and send a report of all the sensor readings to the software. Because you have schedules 1 through to 8, you can actually do it for a 24-hour period if you sort out the timings correct. We have the mesh networking. So this option allows sensors to piggyback communications from other sensors in an effort to reach their desired gateway. So sensors will repeat nearby sensors transmissions if they are unable to report, so stabilizing the communication in potentially poor environments. So please note that this feature will only operate effectively if all sensors in that area have mesh networking mode enabled and share the same scheduled times. So this feature requires that the sensor remain awake for longer times, potentially affecting the battery life. And critical reporting. So enabling the sensor's critical reporting, allowing the sensor to automatically awaken when a delta temperature value is exceeded. Now the specific critical reporting value is set in the next tab in the sensor mode, which will dictate when the sensor should awaken itself. So in the event of this temperature is exceeded, the sensor will automatically go into a minute-by-minute polling until the temperature drops below the threshold. But we need to note that depending on the set level, this again will affect the battery life. So the alert notification references. So these options allow you to designate whether a sensor is configured to respond to delta T enclosure or ambient temperatures. So we set the delta T software will use local ambient and closure temperature to calculate their delta, and it will compare that value to your known alarm levels. So when selecting enclosures or ambient settings, we'll use only those values to compare your alarm levels. So this allows you to trigger alarms against native temperature limits. So the sensor alarm gauge. So this gauge allows you to set the alarm levels, indicate, monitor and measure. So for the specific sensor based in its reference settings, so changing the gauge from normal to reverse mode designates the alarms are triggered when readings are above the normal mode and below, which is the reverse mode. You then can manually place each arrow on the gauge to the designated alarm level. So the grey arrow is your critical reporting alarm threshold. When readings exceed these values, the sensors will automatically go into minute-by-minute polling. So email notifications. So these settings allow the user to determine which events will result in the designated surface user being notified by email. So when the desired event occurs, an email will be sent including information about the sensor, the time of the event, and if the reading is relevant to that event. So what are your options on the emails? So these options designate who will receive notifications as listed in the previous section. You can send to Iris Inc. and this will forward an email to Iris to improve our services and records. Or you can send to contact email and this email will be sent to the listed primary contact. And then we also have the audible alarm option. So this option enables or disables the sensor's built-in alarm buzzer. In the event of that an alarm is triggered, the sensor will emit a loud noise for several seconds. So in some circumstances, this will not be necessary if the sensor is in a location where nobody would be present to hear the alarm. So if the audible noise will have no benefit for the user, it could be considered an unnecessary loss of power. Additionally, some environments may prohibit loud noises or audio disruptions. So the schedules 1 through 8. So these returns the times for all set schedules on this particular sensor. This is primarily used to confirm a sensor's current settings as accurate. And the sensor clock. So when read, this field will fill in with the sensor's currently registered internal clock, confirming the time it believes it is running on. This may differ slightly between actual time by 1 to 5 minutes. So settings. Configure to meet your needs. So almost everything in the Delta T Alert platform can be customized, adjusted and tailored to meet the needs of your local system. So application settings. So within the application settings window, users define and control the details covering the form and function of the Delta T Alert platform. So we have company info. So the details for header and footer information to be used in emails, reports and also to set password security. We have the temperature units. We configure the software platform to Celsius or Fahrenheit. We have the gateway configure. So manually modify the gateway settings. The default settings. We can manually control default sensor settings for schedules and notifications, emails, alarms and monitoring settings. The Delta T. We adjust the default Delta T alarm thresholds for sensors set at Delta T monitoring. The enclosure stroke ambient. So we can adjust the default ambient and enclosure alarm thresholds for units configured to single point monitoring. We have advanced features. So we can configure the network or demo mode, startup and data configuration files. And then finally the reports. We set automated mini reports and full reports for constant information. So let's look at those previous headings in a bit more detail. So the company info and password. So the company details. In here we can insert the company relevant information for use in automatically generated forms, emails and reports. So the email addresses listed here will be used for sending reports, alarms and other notifications. Additional emails can be added by using the semicolon to differentiate separate addresses. We can put in the company logo. We can attach your own personalized company logo to be included in generated documents. And the password settings. We can set a local password to secure the admin settings. Please note, an email must be set to configure a password for reset functionality. So temperature units and gateway configure. So the temperature units is the temperature scale, so we can configure your system between Fahrenheit and Celsius. And then the gateway IP. So we can view and modify your gateway's currently listed IP address for manual adjustments or verification. We have the version number, and this is to review your gateway's current registered version. And the static details. So they review the static details for the gateway such as the Z-Wave, the home ID, the MAC address and its ownership status. So what are our default settings? Well, our schedule's 1 through to 8. So the default sensor setup supports up to 8 scheduled events every 24 hours. Using these schedules improves battery life and allows for long-term monitoring and trending. The reference temperature. So this setting configures sensors by default to monitor alarms against delta, enclosure or ambient values. So we have the email notification. So that designates which emails will be sent from sensors by default. So we have elevated temperature, critical temperature, if it's a low battery or there is no communication. You can either click any of those or you can select all. Again, on our email options, select who should receive email notifications. So you can send to IrisInc if you wish. If not, you then deselect. Send to contact emails only, or you can just say send to all. The audible alarm. Set whether alarms are enabled or disabled by default. And the temperature direction. So this determines if alarms are compared below or above the alarm threshold. The reason we use the temperature direction on the reverse is if you're using it in a cold storage and you want to know what the internal ambient temperature is. So this is the important ones on the application settings. This is the delta T settings. So we need to indicate the alarm. So we need to set the default value or when a delta T temperature indicates a possible deficiency. The major alarm. So this is the delta T alarm value suggesting that repairs should be made immediately. And we have the monitor alarm. So we set the default value for when a delta temperature suggests active monitoring should be followed until repairs can be monitored. And then we have the NETA defaults. So at any time, defaults can be reset to NETA standards or reviewed through the associated help doc. So the enclosure and ambient settings. So we need to indicate the alarm. So we set the default value for when the ambient or enclosure temperature indicates a possible deficiency. We then need to work out the major alarm. So the ambient or enclosure temperature alarm value suggestions that repairs should be made immediately. And then we have finally our monitor alarm. So we set the default value for when the ambient or enclosure temperature suggests active monitoring should be followed until the repairs can be monitored. So what are the advanced features on the Delta T? So we have the network mode. So this sets the default mesh networking settings for newly configured sensors. But we need to note that this feature consumes additional battery life. We have the startup. So we set the startup settings for the Delta T Alert software on your local desktop. We have demo mode. So this enables the demo mode on your system running minute by minute, polling on your sensor lists as it progresses through its attached sensors. But please note that this feature consumes additional battery life. And then we have configuration. So this designates the file storage location for newly generated reports. So the Reports tab. So to send a mini report, you select the desired time span from this drop down and will send the status updates to your designated email recipients. And these reports will contain current values from all sensors. Or we can send a full report. So designate which reports you would like to receive, by default none, and you would like to receive them. So additionally, setting recover last missed will gather and submit any reports that would have been sent if the system shut down before a report was to be submitted if data has been captured. So when we configure our sensors, you can do multi-sensor updates. So if necessary, multiple sensors can be reconfigured in mass to rapidly adjust their schedules, alarm levels and other values. And this process is handled across the 3 pages. So we have sensors. So this page will allow you to select any and all sensors you wish to reconfigure. All selected sensors will receive the exact same configuration, so be sure that none of the sensors you have selected already have specific values tailored to its associated equipment. We have the notifications. So this page configures and schedules notifications and email options for all the sensors along with their current audible alarm settings. And then we have the sensor modes. In this final step, the sensor's temperature values and alarm notifications reference is set for all selected sensors. Once you select Save, all settings will be applied to on that selected sensor. So we can create and restore backups. So the create and restore backup options allow the user to backup and restore information to ensure that the data is not lost due to corruption, shutdowns or unexpected errors. So at all times, software backs up itself on a regular interval, but this can also be run manually should additional iterations or backups be needed. And the data management. So the data management menu allows the user to review and to clear unneeded data. So over the time, the Delta T platform can build up significant amount of redundant data, such as old reports, memory logs and backups. And the user may clear and all these different data types to ensure their local storage is left open for additional records. So system reset. So in the event that you intend to reset your system, you can use this option to entirely clear your Delta T alert installation and all of its data. So this should be used for only this purpose, as any exiting data will be lost. So sensors and gateways will not return to normal operation after a full reset, even if the backup is restored. So at this point, all gateways and sensors must be re-added to the system manually as new devices. Reports. So the right data when you need it. So the Delta T Alert platform provides a wide variety of reporting options, both automated and on demand, to ensure you have access to your data in the format you require. So system reports, print and XLS formats. So selecting either System Reports or System Report XLS will generate a fine displaying the current status of your Delta T software matching your existing system table. So this will display the most recent polling values, status and details on each active sensor in your system at the current time. So the Standard System Report option will open a print window allowing you to select the details and specifications of a new report. Selecting the XLS System Report option will generate the new Excel file matching the format of your current system table for future use and review. So inspection report. The inspection report is the feature that crosses between monitoring and maintenance. So when assets exhibit behavior suggesting fault, they will appear on the inspection report as a pre-formatted form, allowing you to rapidly distribute information to your technical staff. So each faulted asset contains its relevant information readings, alarm levels, and leaves room for notes for the maintenance technician. The inspection report will only ever show sensors that are in an alarm state, or have a low battery, or are no longer communicating with the system. So full and weekly scan. A full and weekly scan options allow you to generate an Excel file matching these timeframes. So a weekly scan provides you with 7 days of data across all sensors and gateways on your platform, whereas a full scan will return all known data in your system. So the following Excel file will allow you to review, graph and analyze the desired amount of data gathered from all your sensors throughout this time period. Or a custom report. So the type of product also partially dictates how much business. In some cases, business executives may manipulate a price to make a product seem more like a luxury. So the alerts. So when alerts occur in the normal view, they will be logged in the admin view. So the reports tab under alerts. The total number of uncleared alerts will be displayed within a red box near the icon as seen below. So by clicking on this option, you can review and clear all currently listed alarms and view the data associated with that notification. How do we do that? Well, we can export to a PDF or an Excel file. So these options allow you to export the currently listed alarms in the Excel or PDF format. Clear all selected. So when clicking clear selected, all checked marked alarms in the table will be removed from the table. So this cannot be undone. So be sure you back up your data. So the module objectives review. We've covered the Delta T alert setup, gateway setup, what we mean by asset monitoring, settings, and finally reports.